The clash of steel and stars. The crystalline spires of the Kelzarian imperial palace pierced the amber sky like daggers of light. Princess Nyara stood at her observation deck, her iridescent scales shifting colors with each breath as she watched her fleet prepare for the final assault on the human colonies. The humans had proven surprisingly resilient, their primitive technology somehow holding against the might of the Kelzarian Empire for far longer than anyone had predicted. "Your Highness," General Vex's gravelly voice interrupted her thoughts. "We've captured their commander." Nyara's silver eyes narrowed, her head crest rising slightly in interest. "The one who led the defense of Proxima Station?" "Yes, Commander Dante Rivers. He's being held in the high-security detention chamber." A thin smile crossed Nyara's face, her scaled fingers tapping against the crystalline window. The defense of Proxima Station had cost her 3 warships, an unprecedented loss for the Kelzarian fleet. Perhaps this human commander would provide insight into how such primitive beings had managed such a feat. The detention chamber was bathed in pale blue light, designed to disorient most species. Yet when Nyara entered, she found the human standing straight, his posture relaxed despite the energy restraints binding his wrists. His dark skin showed signs of battle, and his uniform was torn, but his eyes, they held something Nyara had rarely seen in prisoners, absolute certainty. "Commander Rivers," she spoke, her translator converting her harmonic language into human speech. "You've caused quite a bit of trouble for my empire." Dante's lips curved into a slight smile. "That was the idea, Your Highness. Though I have to admit, I didn't expect a personal visit from the warrior princess herself." Nyara circled him slowly, her scaled armor catching the light. "You know who I am?" Every human commander knows about Princess Nyara of the Kelzarian Empire. Undefeated in combat, trained in 13 forms of warfare, led the conquest of the Centauri sector. He shrugged, the motion casual despite his bonds. "We did our homework. Then you know resistance is futile. Your species cannot hope to match our technological superiority." Dante's eyes tracked her movement, unflinching. "Technology isn't everything, Princess. Humanity has faced extinction-level events before. We're still here." Nyara stopped in front of him, her head crest flaring slightly in annoyance. This human spoke as if they were equals, not captor and prisoner. "Your defense of Proxima Station, explain how you managed it with such inferior ships." "Superior ships don't always mean superior tactics," Dante replied. "Your fleet formations are predictable. Based on strength, yes, but predictable. We used that against you." Nyara's clawed hand shot out, grabbing Dante's throat. But instead of fear, she saw something else in his eyes, understanding. He was analyzing her, just as she was analyzing him. She released him, stepping back. "You're either very brave or very foolish, human." "Maybe both," Dante replied, rubbing his throat. "But I'm also right. Your empire has relied on overwhelming force for so long, you've forgotten how to adapt. That's why you're here, isn't it? You want to know how we've managed to resist." Nyara's scales shifted to a darker shade, a sign of irritation that she immediately tried to suppress. This human was more perceptive than she'd anticipated. "What I want is to understand why your species continues to resist when defeat is inevitable." "Because that's what humans do," Dante said simply. "We adapt, we evolve, we survive. Every time you think you've beaten us, we find another way. It's not about technology or strength, it's about will." Nyara studied him for a long moment. In 3 centuries of warfare, she had never encountered a species quite like humans. They were physically weaker, technologically inferior, and yet they fought with a determination that bordered on madness. "You will be tested, Commander Rivers," she declared finally. "Perhaps then I'll understand what makes your kind so resilient." As she turned to leave, Dante's voice followed her, "Or perhaps you'll learn something about your own kind, Princess." Nyara paused at the doorway, her scales rippling with colors of confusion and intrigue. For the first time in her long life, she had met someone who saw beyond her title, beyond her species' reputation for unstoppable military might. This human saw something else, something that both troubled and fascinated her. She left without another word, but her mind was already racing with possibilities. The standard interrogation protocols wouldn't work on this one. No, Commander Dante Rivers would require a different approach. And despite herself, Nyara found she was looking forward to the challenge. Pride before the fall. The halls of the Kelzarian battle cruiser echoed with whispers as Princess Nyara strode toward the testing chambers. 3 days had passed since Commander Dante Rivers' capture, and still, he showed no signs of breaking. If anything, his calm demeanor had begun to unsettle the guards. The testing chamber was a vast arena designed to push prisoners to their physical and mental limits. Its walls could generate any environment, any challenge. Nyara had never seen anyone survive more than 2 trials. Today would be Rivers' 5th. Your Highness, the chamber master bowed, his scales a muted green of concern. The human's vital signs remain strong despite our efforts. He seems to be adapting to the trials. Nyara's head crest rose in interest. Show me. The chamber's observation window cleared, revealing a harsh desert landscape. Dante stood in the center, surrounded by holographic opponents. His prison uniform was soaked with sweat, but his movements were precise, economical. As each attacker struck, he redirected their force, using their own momentum against them. Fascinating, Nyara murmured. He's learning our combat patterns. Yes, Your Highness. He appears to be incorporating Kelzarian fighting techniques into his own style. Nyara watched as Dante dispatched the last opponent, his breathing controlled despite the chamber's crushing gravity. Enough. I will speak with him. The desert simulation faded as Nyara entered the chamber. Dante turned to face her, wiping sweat from his brow. Princess, he nodded. Come to see if your tests have broken me yet? You continue to surprise us, Commander. Most species can barely stand under triple gravity, yet you fight as if born to it. Dante stretched his shoulders. Humans are adaptable. We've evolved to survive in almost any condition. Plus, he grinned, your combat algorithms have patterns. Once you see them, they're predictable. Nyara's scales flickered with annoyance. You speak of my empire's advanced technology as if it were a child's puzzle. Not at all, Dante's expression grew serious. Your technology is incredible. But technology without innovation becomes stagnant. When was the last time your empire truly had to adapt? The question struck Nyara like a physical blow. She stepped closer, her voice low. You dare question centuries of Kelzarian supremacy? I dare to suggest that supremacy has made you vulnerable. Dante met her gaze steadily. Your empire is so convinced of its superiority that it's forgotten how to grow. Nyara's claws extended reflexively, but she forced them back. This human's words carried a dangerous truth. The Kelzarian Empire had relied on its technological advantage for so long that innovation had become unnecessary. Until now. Tell me, Commander, she said, circling him slowly, if you believe us so stagnant, why have we conquered half the galaxy? Because most species try to beat you at your own game, matching strength with strength, technology with technology. Dante turned, tracking her movement. Humans think differently. We look for weaknesses, adapt our strategies, find unconventional solutions. Like at Proxima Station? Nyara stopped, her head tilted in curiosity. Exactly. Your ships were more powerful, but we used the station's radiation belt to disrupt your targeting systems. Low-tech solution to a high-tech problem. For the first time, Nyara felt something she hadn't experienced in centuries, doubt. Not in her empire's power, but in its path. You are either very wise or very foolish, Commander Rivers. I'm just practical. And right now, practically speaking, our war is damaging both our species. There's a better way forward. Nyara's scales shifted through patterns of thought. You suggest alliance? With a primitive species? I suggest cooperation between two species with complementary strengths. Your technology and our adaptability? We could achieve things neither of us could manage alone. The chamber fell silent as Nyara considered his words. Everything she had been taught rejected the very notion of treating humans as equals. And yet, you will face one final test, Commander, she declared. Not of strength or endurance, but of wisdom. Succeed, and perhaps we will discuss this idea of cooperation. Dante's lips curved in a slight smile. Looking forward to it, Princess. As Nyara left the chamber, her mind raced with possibilities she had never before considered. The human was dangerous, yes, but not in the way she had expected. His weapons were not ships or guns, but ideas that threatened to reshape everything she thought she knew about power and progress. The chamber master awaited her orders, his scales a questioning blue. Prepare the trials of insight, she commanded. And summon the High Council. They should witness what comes next. For better or worse, Commander Dante Rivers had already changed the Kelzarian Empire. The only question was how far that change would go. Hearts of warriors. The High Council chamber of the Kelzarian Empire blazed with light, its crystalline walls reflecting the tension in the room. Hundreds of noble-born Kelzarians filled the tiered seats, their scales shifting through patterns of anticipation and skepticism. At the center of the chamber stood Commander Dante Rivers, unbound for the first time since his capture. Nyara watched from her elevated position, her own scales carefully controlled to show nothing but royal authority. The trial of insight was an ancient tradition, rarely offered to any outside their species. Many on the council had objected, but none dared challenge her directly. Commander Rivers, her voice carried across the chamber, you stand before the High Council to face the trial of insight. Do you understand what this means? Dante's eyes swept the chamber, taking in the assembled aliens with that same calculating gaze she had come to recognize. I understand that this is unprecedented, Your Highness. Though I suspect you wouldn't have arranged this if you didn't think I had a chance. Murmurs rippled through the council. Nyara raised her hand for silence. The trial has three parts, the challenge of mind, the challenge of body, and the challenge of spirit. Survive all three, and your words will be heard by the council. And if I fail? Dante asked, though his slight smile suggested he already knew the answer. Then you die, Nyara stated simply. Do you accept these terms? I accept. Dante's voice carried no hesitation. The first challenge began immediately. The chamber floor transformed into a complex three-dimensional puzzle grid, ancient Kelzarian symbols floating in the air. Most species would have been overwhelmed by the alien mathematics, but Dante studied the patterns with focused intensity. Your civilization's mathematical language, he said, moving symbols with practiced gestures, it's based on crystalline growth patterns, isn't it? Nyara's head crest rose in surprise. He had discovered in minutes what had taken other species years to comprehend. Continue, she commanded, hiding her amazement. Within moments, the puzzle resolved itself, the symbols aligning into a perfect mathematical proof. The council's scales flickered with shades of astonishment. The challenge of mind is complete, Nyara announced. Prepare for the challenge of body. The chamber transformed again, this time into a combat arena. From a side door emerged Champion Kral, the Empire's greatest warrior. His massive form towered over Dante, battle-scarred scales gleaming. This challenge is simple, Nyara declared. Survive. Kral attacked with devastating speed, his enhanced strength making the air crack. But Dante moved like water, using the champion's momentum against him just as he had in the testing chamber. Each blow that should have ended the fight instead became an opportunity for the human to demonstrate his adaptability. "Your warriors rely too much on strength," Dante called out, ducking under a crushing blow. "They forget that victory isn't always about who hits hardest." For 10 minutes, the dance continued. Crowl grew increasingly frustrated as Dante turned each attack into a lesson in human combat philosophy. Finally, in a move that left the council gasping, Dante used Crowl's own weight to throw him to the ground, pinning him in a hold that even the champion's strength couldn't break. "The challenge of body is complete," Nyara announced, her scales betraying a hint of pride she couldn't quite suppress. "The final trial," she continued as Dante helped Crowl to his feet, "is the challenge of spirit. Face me." She descended from her position, her ceremonial armor catching the light. The chamber grew absolutely silent as princess and prisoner faced each other. "Your mind is sharp, your body skilled," she said, "but spirit, that is what truly defines a warrior. Show me yours." Without warning, she launched a psychic attack, her species' most closely guarded ability. Most minds would have shattered instantly under the assault. But Dante's consciousness met hers with unexpected strength. Instead of resistance, she found acceptance. Instead of fear, curiosity. His mind opened to her, showing not just his thoughts but his hopes for both their species. She saw Earth through his eyes, humanity's struggles and triumphs, their endless drive to improve, to explore, to grow. And he saw her in return, the weight of empire on her shoulders, the growing fear that her civilization's stagnation would be its downfall, the desperate hope that perhaps this human could help forge a new path. The psychic connection broke, leaving both of them breathing heavily. The council waited in tense silence. "The challenge of spirit," Nyara declared, her voice slightly shaken, "is complete. Commander Rivers has passed all trials." She turned to face the council, her scales now showing royal command. "What we have witnessed today is unprecedented. This human has shown not just strength or cunning, but true understanding. The time has come for the Kelzarian Empire to evolve." Dante stood beside her, still recovering from the psychic contact but standing tall. "Your Highness, Honorable Council, what you fear most isn't human strength, it's change. But change is the only constant in the universe. The question is whether you'll let it destroy you or use it to grow stronger." The council chamber erupted in discussion, scales flashing through every shade of emotion. But Nyara barely noticed. Her attention was fixed on the future suddenly opening before them, a future where two species might learn from each other instead of destroying one another. "You've done the impossible, Commander," she said quietly. Dante smiled. "No, Princess. We've only shown what's possible when we work together." The council's debate raged on, but in that moment, both human and Kelzarian knew that everything had already changed. The halls of the Kelzarian battle cruiser echoed with whispers as Princess Nyara strode toward the testing chambers. 3 days had passed since Commander Dante Rivers' capture, and still, he showed no signs of breaking. If anything, his calm demeanor had begun to unsettle the guards. The testing chamber was a vast arena designed to push prisoners to their physical and mental limits. Its walls could generate any environment, any challenge. Nyara had never seen anyone survive more than 2 trials. Today would be Rivers' 5th. "Your Highness," the chamber master bowed, his scales a muted green of concern. "The human's vital signs remain strong despite our efforts. He seems to be adapting to the trials." Nyara's head crest rose in interest. "Show me." The chamber's observation window cleared, revealing a harsh desert landscape. Dante stood in the center, surrounded by holographic opponents. His prison uniform was soaked with sweat, but his movements were precise, economical. As each attacker struck, he redirected their force, using their own momentum against them. "Fascinating," Nyara murmured. He's learning our combat patterns. Yes, Your Highness. He appears to be incorporating Kelzarian fighting techniques into his own style. Nyara watched as Dante dispatched the last opponent, his breathing controlled despite the chamber's crushing gravity. Enough. I will speak with him. The desert simulation faded as Nyara entered the chamber. Dante turned to face her, wiping sweat from his brow. Princess, he nodded. Come to see if your tests have broken me yet? You continue to surprise us, Commander. Most species can barely stand under triple gravity, yet you fight as if born to it. Dante stretched his shoulders. Humans are adaptable. We've evolved to survive in almost any condition. Plus, he grinned, your combat algorithms have patterns. Once you see them, they're predictable. Nyara's scales flickered with annoyance. You speak of my empire's advanced technology as if it were a child's puzzle. Not at all, Dante's expression grew serious. Your technology is incredible. But technology without innovation becomes stagnant. When was the last time your empire truly had to adapt? The question struck Nyara like a physical blow. She stepped closer, her voice low. You dare question centuries of Kelzarian supremacy? I dare to suggest that supremacy has made you vulnerable. Dante met her gaze steadily. Your empire is so convinced of its superiority that it's forgotten how to grow. Nyara's claws extended reflexively, but she forced them back. This human's words carried a dangerous truth. The Kelzarian Empire had relied on its technological advantage for so long that innovation had become unnecessary. Until now. Tell me, Commander, she said, circling him slowly, if you believe us so stagnant, why have we conquered half the galaxy? Because most species try to beat you at your own game, matching strength with strength, technology with technology. Dante turned, tracking her movement. Humans think differently. We look for weaknesses, adapt our strategies, find unconventional solutions. Like at Proxima Station? Nyara stopped, her head tilted in curiosity. Exactly. Your ships were more powerful, but we used the station's radiation belt to disrupt your targeting systems. Low-tech solution to a high-tech problem. For the first time, Nyara felt something she hadn't experienced in centuries, doubt. Not in her empire's power, but in its path. You are either very wise or very foolish, Commander Rivers. I'm just practical. And right now, practically speaking, our war is damaging both our species. There's a better way forward. Nyara's scales shifted through patterns of thought. You suggest alliance? With a primitive species? I suggest cooperation between two species with complementary strengths. Your technology and our adaptability? We could achieve things neither of us could manage alone. The chamber fell silent as Nyara considered his words. Everything she had been taught rejected the very notion of treating humans as equals. And yet. You will face one final test, Commander, she declared. Not of strength or endurance, but of wisdom. Succeed, and perhaps we will discuss this idea of cooperation. Dante's lips curved in a slight smile. Looking forward to it, Princess. As Nyara left the chamber, her mind raced with possibilities she had never before considered. The human was dangerous, yes, but not in the way she had expected. His weapons were not ships or guns, but ideas that threatened to reshape everything she thought she knew about power and progress. The chamber master awaited her orders, his scales a questioning blue. Prepare the trials of insight, she commanded. And summon the High Council. They should witness what comes next. For better or worse, Commander Dante Rivers had already changed the Kelzarian Empire. The only question was how far that change would go. The price of change. The Imperial Palace corridors buzzed with tension as Princess Nyara strode toward the Emergency Council session. Behind her, Dante Rivers kept pace, no longer a prisoner but not yet officially an ally. Their footsteps echoed against crystalline floors as reports of unrest flooded in from across the Empire. The Crimson faction has mobilized their fleet, General Vex reported, his scales a troubled gray. Admiral Zarl claims your decision to treat with humans has compromised the Empire's strength. 6 outer colonies have declared support for his rebellion. Nyara's scales rippled with carefully controlled anger. How many ships? 3 battle groups, Your Highness. And? Vex hesitated, some of your own commanders have joined them. The price of change, Dante said quietly, is often resistance from those who profit from stagnation. They entered the council chamber to find it in chaos. Councillors argued violently, their scales flashing warning colors. High Commander Draz, leader of the traditionalist faction, dominated the center floor. The princess has been corrupted by human weakness, he roared. Our empire has ruled through strength for 10,000 years. We will not bow to primitive creatures. Strength without wisdom is just violence, Nyara's voice cut through the chaos. The chamber fell silent as she descended to the floor, Dante at her side. And wisdom tells us that adaptation is not weakness, it is survival. You speak of survival while destroying everything that makes us strong, Draz challenged. The human has poisoned your mind with his ideas. My mind was opened, not poisoned, Nyara countered. I have seen what humanity offers, not just their technology or their tactics, but their spirit. Their drive to improve, to overcome, to evolve. Tell me, High Commander, when was the last time our empire truly innovated? When did we last face a challenge that made us stronger? Before Draz could respond, emergency alerts flashed across the chamber's screens. Admiral Zarl's fleet had emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the system. Perfect timing, Draz smiled coldly. The Admiral will cleanse this corruption from our empire. You fool, Nyara's scales darkened with fury. You would risk civil war rather than consider a new path? Some prices must be paid to preserve our way of life, Draz declared. Guards emerged from hidden doors, weapons trained on Nyara and Dante. Surrender now, princess, and perhaps the council will show mercy. But Nyara had anticipated this. At her subtle gesture, loyal troops emerged from other entrances, creating a standoff. The chamber became a powder keg of tension, one spark away from explosion. Your Highness, Dante stepped forward, seemingly unconcerned by the weapons aimed at him. Permission to offer a tactical assessment? Nyara nodded, curious despite the situation. Admiral Zarl's fleet formation is typical Kelzarian doctrine, powerful, but predictable. Just like at Proxima Station, that predictability can be turned against them. But we'll need something they won't expect. What do you propose, Commander? A joint operation. Your ships, human tactics. Show them what our species can accomplish together. Draz laughed harshly. You would trust human strategy with our Imperial fleet? I would trust in progress, Nyara declared. And I would remind everyone here that I remain your princess. Her scales shifted to royal command patterns, an ancient display of authority that made even Draz step back. Those loyal to the Empire, the true Empire, not just its past, stand with me now. The chamber erupted in movement. Most of the younger council members moved to Nyara's side, while the older traditionalists gathered around Draz. But it was General Vex's choice that shocked everyone. The old warrior walked slowly to stand beside Dante. I have served the Empire for 3 centuries, he announced, his scales showing truth patterns. I have seen the cost of our stagnation. Perhaps. He glanced at Dante, perhaps it is time to learn new ways of victory. Nyara's scales rippled with pride. Secure the traitors, she commanded. Commander Rivers and I have a battle to plan. As guards led Draz and his conspirators away, Nyara and Dante moved to the strategic command center. The massive holographic display showed Zarl's fleet moving into attack position. 3 battle groups against 2, Dante mused, studying the display. On paper, they have the advantage. But they're expecting a traditional Kelzarian response. And what will they get instead? Nyara asked, her scales showing patterns of intrigue. A lesson in human adaptability combined with Kelzarian power. Dante's fingers danced across the controls, outlining his plan. We'll need to reorganize your fleet structure, create smaller, more mobile strike teams. Hit them where they don't expect, use their own tactical doctrine against them. My commanders won't like changing centuries of military tradition, Nyara warned. They'll like defeat even less, Dante countered. This is your chance to show your empire what change really means, not weakness, but evolution. Growth. Nyara studied the battle plan, her tactical training recognizing its brilliance even as her traditional instincts fought against its revolutionary approach. Finally, she straightened, her decision made. Send word to the fleet, she commanded. All ships to implement Commander River's tactical protocols. Let's show Admiral Zarl what the future looks like. As the orders went out, Nyara and Dante shared a look of understanding. The next few hours would determine not just their fate, but the fate of both their species. The price of change was high, but the cost of stagnation would be even higher. Space itself seemed to hold its breath as the two fleets faced each other across the Kelzarian home system. Admiral Zarl's rebel forces hung in perfect traditional formation, their ships arranged in the time-honored patterns that had conquered 1,000 worlds. In contrast, Princess Nyara's loyal fleet had adopted a scattered, seemingly chaotic arrangement that made the rebel commander's scales ripple with derision. On the bridge of the Imperial flagship, Nyara and Dante stood before the tactical display, watching as the final pieces fell into place. General Vex entered, his scales showing determination. All ships report ready, Your Highness. Though I must admit, many commanders are uncomfortable with these new tactics. Sometimes discomfort is the price of evolution, Nyara replied, her own scales shifting through patterns of anticipation. Commander Rivers, begin your demonstration. Dante nodded, activating the fleet-wide command channel. All units, execute Operation Avalanche. The seemingly scattered loyal fleet suddenly burst into coordinated motion. Small strike groups accelerated in unpredictable patterns, their movements following principles of human martial arts, redirecting force, exploiting momentum, turning strength against itself. The rebel fleet's rigid formation, designed to project overwhelming power, became a liability as more agile squadrons slipped through their lines. Impossible, Vex whispered, watching as the rebels struggled to adjust. They're breaking through our strongest defensive patterns as if they weren't there. Not impossible, Dante corrected, just different. Your traditional formations are powerful but predictable. We're showing them something they've never seen before. Admiral Zarl's voice boomed across the command channel. This is blasphemy. You dare corrupt our sacred battle doctrine with human chaos? I dare to help the Empire evolve, Nyara responded calmly. Surrender now, Admiral. Don't force us to demonstrate how effective this chaos can be. Never. I'll die before I see our empire weakened by human influence. Zarl's flagship surged forward, leading a desperate charge toward Nyara's position. As you wish, Nyara nodded to Dante. Show them the next evolution. Dante's fingers danced across the tactical controls. All units, execute Thunderstrike protocol. The loyal fleet's formations shifted again, this time implementing a hybrid strategy that merged Kelzarian power with human adaptability. Strike groups coordinated with unprecedented precision, using the rebels' own energy weapons against them, reflecting and redirecting their fire through carefully positioned shield geometries. Beautiful, Nyara breathed, watching as the rebel fleet's formation began to crumble. They never even imagined this was possible. That's humanity's greatest strength, Dante said quietly. We imagine possibilities. We dream of what could be, not just what has been. The battle reached its crescendo as Admiral Zarl's flagship found itself surrounded, caught in a web of overlapping fields and crossfire. The Admiral's voice crackled through the command channel one final time. "You've doomed us all, Princess. When the Empire falls, remember that you caused its destruction." "No, Admiral," Nyara replied. "I've ensured its survival. The universe changes. Those who refuse to change with it are the ones doomed to fall." The rebel flagship's shields failed under the coordinated assault. Rather than surrender, Zarl activated his self-destruct sequence, taking his loyal officers with him in a final blast of defiance. The remaining rebel ships, seeing their leader's fate and the effectiveness of the new tactics, began signaling their surrender. As the battle concluded, Nyara turned to address her bridge crew. Her scales shifted through royal patterns, but now they contained new elements, hints of human-inspired innovation in their design. "Let this day be remembered not as a victory of force, but as a victory of evolution. We have shown that strength lies not in rigid adherence to tradition, but in the wisdom to adapt, to grow, to become more than we were." She turned to Dante, her scales showing patterns he had never seen before: respect, gratitude, and something more complex. "Commander Rivers, you have shown us a new path. Will you help us walk it?" Dante smiled. "I think both our species have a lot to learn from each other. This is just the beginning." The following days saw rapid changes throughout the Kelzarian Empire. The High Council, reformed with younger, more progressive members, established the first-ever human Kelzarian cooperative. Research teams began combining the best aspects of both species' technologies. Military doctrine underwent revolutionary changes, incorporating human adaptability with Kelzarian power. 1 month after the battle, Princess Nyara stood again at her observation deck, but this time Dante stood beside her as an equal, not a prisoner. Below them, human and Kelzarian scientists worked together in the palace laboratories, while in the training yards, warriors of both species shared techniques. "Your father would be proud," Dante said softly. "You've transformed your empire without destroying it. That's a rare achievement." Nyara's scales rippled with thoughtful colors. "Perhaps that is the true measure of strength, not the power to destroy, but the wisdom to transform. My people believed we had reached the peak of evolution. You showed us we had only reached a plateau. And you showed humanity that superior technology doesn't have to mean endless war," Dante replied. "Together, we're both becoming something greater." They watched as the first joint-designed ships began their test flights, their hulls combining Kelzarian crystalline technology with human-inspired adaptable systems. In the distance, the sun rose over the capital city, its light refracting through the crystal spires to create a rainbow of possibilities. "A new dawn," Nyara said, her scales showing the newly created pattern for hope. "For both our species," Dante agreed. As they stood together, watching their peoples unite in ways neither had imagined possible, both understood that they had achieved something unprecedented. They had proven that the greatest power wasn't in weapons or technology, but in the ability to change, to grow, to imagine new possibilities. The bold princess had indeed faced her equal, and together, they had changed the game for everyone.